Welcome to the Call to... God, it's going to be one of those days. Welcome to the Call to Freedom. It is April the 10th. I think it's a Wednesday.
It's 2019.
Wednesday. It is a Wednesday. Yeah, that sucks because that means I have to work tonight. I'm, of course, your host, Aria of theanarchistgmail.com, and I am just totally tired. So tired that my eyes actually hurt. It's very uncomfortable.
Your eyes are not as open as they normally are.
No, and
like
I don't know.
Shut.
Yeah, and I don't know why, because it's not like I didn't sleep a lot. I guess I didn't because I was up kind of late, and then I woke up at the usual time between 11 and noon-ish.
Oops.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's how it goes. Got a monster here. I'm hoping that will help me wake up.
You know, getting to bed before sunrise probably would help, too.
Yeah, but then that's not as much fun.
Yeah, but you pay for it the next day, you know.
You do, but I only have to be out until about 2 in the morning, so, I mean, that's a light day for me. It's still ultimately like a 12-hour day or an 11-hour day for me, but this is one of my lightest days. Actually, Mondays and Tuesdays were my lightest days, and I was thinking about that earlier. Taking up Aria Uncensored on Tuesday evenings means that both of my days off are going to have about 6 hours of radio every single week. Because it looks like, and it's not been officially said yet, but it looks like I will be, because Melanie may be moving to Wednesdays, things like that. But it looks like I may be joining Free Talk Live regularly on Mondays.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Well, I guess I enjoy doing it, but I mean, that's 6 solid hours of work. And then Tuesday, it's Call to Freedom, a 3-hour gap where there's Free Talk Live, and then come back to do Aria Uncensored. So 5 hours of radio. So 5 hours of work will be my lightest day on any given week. So don't be surprised when I miss episodes of Aria Uncensored, probably once a month, you know.
If it happens, it happens.
Yeah, because, good God, that is a lot of time being devoted just to stuff, right? And today, of course, I took the conversation that was had yesterday about the nuances of having sex with dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And
you clipped it.
Cut that out. And, of course, that took about an hour to fully do. And so I'm just usually doing stuff like that if I'm not here at the studio or if I'm not at work at my other job. So eventually something's going to have to give. But for now, I'm young and I'm capable of doing this without... I'm running myself into the ground, sure, but I'm young, so there's plenty of me left to run into the ground. But you brought in we wanted to get into it yesterday before we got onto dog sex. But Backpage, Chris found there's a new one.
Yes, there is.
But there's not just a new one. There's like 50 new ones.
Oh yeah, you shut something like that down, and the same thing happened with the Silk Road. I mean, you shut that down, and 16 others popped up. So
I assumed, based on what he said, that I could search for new Backpage or something like that and find the news article that he was talking about. I didn't. I found several. Probably the most obvious of which is bedpage.com, who I'm going to reach out to try to have them on our show because I think prostitution should be legal.
Oh, yes, it should.
And I think pages like Backpage and Bedpage and Craigslist, when they had it, lowered the rates of human trafficking in sex work and made sex work generally safer.
Yes, they do.
Sort of like how you don't have a lot of human trafficking in Nevada, and you don't have a lot of STD-ridden, heroin-addicted prostitutes in Nevada because, you know, it's all above the board. The pimp out there on the streets of Compton doesn't care if the prostitute has chlamydia or HIV or whatever. Doesn't care at all. The business that is operating a legitimate business certainly cares. So that's really not a news item. It was just something I wanted to go over because it's a topic that I find fascinating, and I don't want to say I'm passionate about it because I'm not. But
well, it is interesting.
It is interesting, and I think a lot of good would come about as a result of legalizing prostitution, but I don't think it's likely to happen. I mean, but really, it's it's so obviously a remnant of Puritanism and Puritan culture that I'm kind of surprised it's still illegal anywhere.
I know, right? We've left most of that behind, it seems. We're starting to.
Because you can either have the government involved in people's bedrooms, or you can get it out of people's bedrooms. And if you're going to get the government out of people's bedrooms, then you have to stop monitoring their reasons for having sex. And that's what it ultimately comes down to. And realistically, it's true. If you have sex with a woman, or if you have sex with anybody, one way or another, you paid.
Yeah, true.
If you take them out on dates and things like that, you're paying. You're not paying the girl, but you are paying.
You are paying. Well, kind of. I mean, if you buy her dinner, that's payment of a sort.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but it doesn't go directly to her. I guess the food does.
The food goes directly to her. The enjoyment of the movie that you go to does.
And of course, they covered this on the Boondocks, and it's such an obvious point that people don't like talking about it. But even Huey, who is generally the sane man in the show, was just unable to dispute what Riley was saying about it because it's true. But we demonize it when actual cash changes hands for some reason.
Yeah, I don't get that. Why is one okay and the other is not?
I don't have any idea. I'm not a Puritan, and most people aren't Puritans. So that we still have these laws in effect illegalizing prostitution is just absolutely bizarre. But you brought in a story about children and teens in the U.S. visiting emergency rooms for suicidal thoughts.
Oh, yes.
And suicide attempts. Apparently, that number has doubled between 2007 and 2015. What do they consider to be the cutoff point between children and teens? Because I can't imagine very many 8-year-olds going to the ER for suicidal tendencies.
That's a good question.
If so, that's a total dropping of the ball by the parents.
It looks like I'm just skimming through here to try to figure that out. I think it looks like their cutoff may be high school.
Well, apparently, good Lord. Researchers used publicly available data, blah, blah, blah. From the 300 emergency rooms sampled, the researchers tracked the number of children between 5 and 18 who received the diagnosis of suicidal ideation or suicide attempts each year. So that means children as young as 5 years old have made suicide attempts or experienced suicidal ideation.
Right. That's amazing.
What
just
are
boggles
you
the mind.
Yeah, what are you doing to your 5-year-old children that is making them so jaded and hopeless that they are suicidal?
You are a horrible parent.
I can understand teenagers, right? Because they're all angsty and hormonal and all of that, and everything is just the total end of the world. But 5-year-olds?
5-year-olds, yeah. 5, 6, 7. How are 5-year-olds becoming suicidal?
I don't think it's going to
What have
dig
people
into
done
that.
to them?
Diagnoses of either condition increased from 580,000 in 2007 to 1.12 million in 2015, according to the study. The average age of a child at the time of evaluation was 13, and 43% of the visits were in children between 5 and 11 years old.
That's scary. That's almost half.
It is almost half. Almost half of the people who went to the ER for suicidal attempts.
Half of the people under 18.
Or suicidal thoughts were, half of the people under 18. Half of 1.12 million were between the ages of 5 and 11 years old.
This is insane. Something has gone so terribly wrong in this country, the way people are raising their kids. I can't think of anything else.
I've got to imagine that it's probably not the case that 5-year-olds and 11-year-olds are actually experiencing any sort of suicidal ideation or suicide attempts. Because I was going through a lot of crap with my mother being beaten and murdered and things like that around those ages, and I was never suicidal. I can't imagine a lot that the average 7-year-old is going through that, compares to that kind of thing. But we'll get back into more of this discussion, so don't go anywhere. This is The Call to Freedom. Welcome back. This is The Call to Freedom, and as always, you're invited to give us a call. That number is 603-283-6160. Again, that's 603-283-6160, or you can use the Discord call-in lines, which you can find at discord.lrn.fm. And we've been talking about this study, or this studying of the data from various institutions of pediatrics and things like that, where they, looked at the data from emergency rooms and discovered that 43% of the visits from people under 18 years old who went to the ER for suicidal ideation or suicide attempts were between the ages of 5 and 19 and 11 years old.
How do kids between 5 and 11 become suicidal? What are people doing to their kids to cause them to? I just don't get it.
Well, the numbers are very alarming, said Dr. Brett Burstein, the lead study author and a pediatric. I don't care about his credentials.
Yes, they are alarming.
It also represents a larger percentage of all pediatric emergency department visits, where suicidal behavior among the pediatric population was just 2% of all visits. That's now up to 3.5%. But again, I imagine it's going to be far more like a 6-year-old saying, I want to kill myself or whatever because they died in a level in a video game, and the parents freaking out and rushing them to the hospital to be diagnosed with suicidal ideation. Or happening in school with something like, because my nephew says that, and he's like in the 3rd grade, he's pretty regularly says, I want to kill myself in response to things that go wrong in video games, because that's what he hears people doing on YouTube.
Yeah, that's not really suicidal ideation, and you'd think a doctor would be able to figure out the difference between that sort of thing.
I don't think they really care, because once they do this, they can start prescribing you all of these fun little antidepressants and Ritalin and things like that they get paid to prescribe to people. So I think it probably suits their interest to freak out and overreact to these sorts of things. Because I honestly can't imagine very many 6-year-olds who genuinely want to kill themselves or have given any thought whatsoever to taking their own lives.
Yeah, it's really messing with my head here.
We know that suicide and depression have been rising significantly, said Dr. Jean Barrison. Blah, 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 more. Good God, this entire paragraph is dedicated to their credentials rather than anything else they have to say. Depression and a prior suicide attempt are the 2 biggest risk factors for suicide, and with rates of suicide on the rise, it makes sense for risk factors to increase as well. Well, okay. Suicide rates may or may not be on the rise. I don't know. I don't particularly care. I think that if somebody wants to kill themselves, then they should be allowed to.
Right.
But suicide is illegal here in the United States, and you will find yourself in jail for attempting it.
Yeah, so if you do attempt it, make sure you actually succeed, right?
Well, I didn't succeed, and I was taken to the ER, bleeding out from my wrists, and I was not actually charged. Instead, I was hospitalized. But even then, it was very easy to get out, and it's an amazing thing, because I went to the ER for attempting to kill myself, and less than 12 hours later, I was walking out of the behavioral hospital a free person. And it was because the psychologists were really, really easy to manipulate.
Really?
Yeah, all they wanted to do was put me into one of 3 or 4 different molds. So I put myself into one of those molds, told them what they wanted to hear, said, I was just doing it for attention, whatever. I don't remember exactly what I said.
Right.
And they were like, okay, well, you're free to go.
Yeah, bye.
Even though I was there against my will, right? 12 hours later, I was... We are taking calls, Wikawia. I assume you have some thoughts on the subject of suicidal children. Is that correct? There's a lot of background noise. Can you turn us down?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, am I on right now?
You are on, yes.
Oh, hey, what's up? I didn't say anything about suicidal thoughts. Did I?
No, but that's what we've been discussing. So what?
Oh.
Okay, so what did you call in to discuss?
Oh, I don't know. I just wanted to say hello.
Okay, well, thanks for the call. I appreciate that.
Okay.
We're going to get back to this discussion that was really weird for Wikiwea.
Yeah, what's going on there?
Well, he's Muslim, as I understand it, from the UK, so he's not drunk. But that would be my first guess if anyone else did that. That was really bizarre. One reason for the increase in depression and suicidal behaviors may be more stress and pressure on kids, Beresin said. Kids are feeling more pressure to achieve, more pressure in school, and are more worried about making a living than in previous years. Now, there's no way that 5-year-olds are worried about making a living.
No, but they might be worried about school.
They might be worried about school, yeah, because schools are screwed up. And I mean, they were screwed up when I went to school. But seeing how my nephew is treated in his elementary school, it's a stark contrast to how I was treated in elementary school. He's treated as though he is a robot and he should fit into these various molds, and no amount of individualist expression is permitted.
Yeah, it's a school. They want everyone to be exactly the same so they can control them and cogs in a wheel, you know.
But like when he was in the first grade, they were making him 100% responsible for keeping up with his own homework assignments and things like that.
Homework in the first grade? What has happened? We didn't have homework in the first grade.
We did. Homework started in kindergarten for us.
Wow.
Yeah. But I mean, we weren't responsible for it. You know, our parents were responsible for ensuring that our homework got done.
Right.
Here, if the parent says, oh, well, I make sure they get their homework done and all of that, they're going to be chastised by the teacher. And it's really screwed up. But parents and caregivers are also more stressed, adding that the rates of suicide have increased in all age groups over the past 20 years and that the stress is passed down to children and teens. I don't know how much I believe that to be true either because, again, my nephew is one of the happiest kids I've ever met, right?
Are his parents messed up?
They are extremely messed up.
Are they under a lot of stress, but it's not affecting him?
It doesn't seem to be. Approximately 15% of U.S. high school students report that they've been bullied online in the past year. A Pew Research Center survey found that number could be even higher at 59%. I don't believe
15% to 59%. That's so wide a divergence there that neither of those numbers is really believable.
They say that cyberbullying can be especially difficult for kids. And I would agree because cyberbullying can be pretty intense.
Oh, yeah.
Having gone through it on a number of occasions, but you can unplug from it. And I think the disconnect here is that kids feel like they can't or they shouldn't unplug from it. This is the call to freedom. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom and the Rational Review News Digest, located at rationalreview.com. It's the Freedom Movement's daily news digest, aggregating stories from all over the internet that are of interest to libertarians and to liberty-minded people. They include podcasts, videos, blogs, and news articles, and are now a source for people to receive the Call to Freedom's podcasts. So be sure to check them out at rationalreview.com to stay up to date on all the happenings in the wider world. And we've been discussing here the suicide rates or the suicide attempt rates or the suicidal ideation rates. There should really just be sort of one catch-all term for that.
Yeah, we'll make up a word.
Among people 5 to 11 years old, according to this survey.
Yeah, it's crazy how you wouldn't think that little kids that young would kill themselves or try to, or even think about it, but apparently a few do.
Well, I certainly see the concern with cyberbullying and things like that, because a lot of the people under 18, ages generally 12 through 16, kill themselves as a result of bullying. It seems to really happen with females. A lot of them do end up killing themselves. Usually drinking bleach seems to be their preferred method for some unholy reason.
Yeah, I can't imagine why you would do that. That's not very effective, and it's very painful.
Oh, no, it's extremely effective. The issue is that it's one of the most painful ways to die. Like, a lot of the people who attempt suicide with this method, they end up throwing themselves out of 6-story windows and things like that, like crashing through the windows just to end the pain. So it's definitely an effective way to kill yourself, but it is one of the most agonizing ways to do it, evidently. I mean, I can't imagine how painful that is.
Yeah,
but you're pouring acid down your own throat for the most part. It's nuts.
Doesn't react very well with the body.
No. But cyberbullying, they point to as a problem, but unlike in school settings, it can fly under the radar without anyone knowing it's happening and without the same repercussions for the bullies. In fact, there's generally no repercussions for the bullies online. They just sort of move on to another target.
Right.
And that's the end of it. Like the idiot there who just called in to tell me that I look like an N-word. What a pointless... Of course, that's not...
During the break.
Yeah. Obviously, the idiot thought we were just going to let some random caller on the air. We did that with Wikawea because we know Wikawea. We don't do that with the average call that comes in. But, when it's sort of systemic like that, when you're just being insulted constantly, it is cyberbullying. And not everyone has the fortitude to just deal with that with a laugh. A lot of people get butthurt like Christopher Cantwell and storm away and go cry themselves to sleep or whatever.
Yeah, a lot of people never learn how to deal with it.
No, but I think, I don't want to say that I think being bullied to some extent teaches them how to deal with that, because that's a messed up thing to say.
No, yeah,
But how could they learn to deal with that without being victims of that?
That's a good question. I
would certainly agree that, internal strength, internal emotional strength, and all of that, it's certainly a good thing. But those are also forged in the fires of suffering. And I don't know whether or not I really want to take the position that a 10-year-old kid should have suffered at some point in order to build up that level. I don't know if bleach is an acid or a base. I don't really care. That's not the point.
Yeah, the point is that it will dissolve your insides from the inside out and cause you extreme pain like you've never felt before in your life, and never will again, because it will kill you.
Yeah, it's definitely not a method that people would recommend. What surprises me is that people go through with suicide attempts without doing any research whatsoever into the topic.
Right. Why do people just... I don't know. Are they just going on rumors without actually trying to Google it first?
I think a lot of the times they're going on rumors, yeah.
I mean, if you actually want to commit suicide, you can just Google it and find several effective methods that don't cause you a whole lot of pain.
Well, there's one in particular, and I'm not going to talk about it here on the air, that causes no pain whatsoever, and it's 100% effective. I'm not, as I said, I'm not going to talk about it on the air because it's something that anyone can do with like $40. You don't need a special license or anything. But any amount of research, genuine research into the topic, will lead people to that. They just don't seem to... It seems like that would be the difference between someone who is genuinely considering killing themselves and someone who is reaching out for attention. But we're joined once again by Wikawea, who said he has comments he would like to make on the subject of suicide and suicidal ideation. So what are your thoughts on the subject, Wikawea? There's a lot of background noise. Can you move away from that?
Is this okay?
It is when you're not speaking. I assume there's a noise gate or something like that involved here. But yeah, there is a lot of background noise.
I'm in a slightly noisy room. That's all it is. But I'm not using the audio stream on loudspeaker or anything. I'm using earphones.
Okay. Well, what are your thoughts on the subject of suicide?
Well, I mean, like you were talking a while ago about like people doing it at a really young age, and I just think that's like I think there are a lot of things that people think are a really, really, really big deal.
LRN.FM.
Like, and then like shortly afterwards they realize it's not that big a deal.
Yeah, I mean, when you're feeling an emotion like that, it certainly, it feels intense. But a lot of times just sleeping on it, just going to sleep and waking up the next day will decrease in the power of those emotions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like I remember when we were at high school and we had high school exams at 16, I thought if I failed them it would be life over. And literally a year, not even a year, like a few months after them, I just couldn't have possibly cared less anymore. And also when I was like 17, I thought something, because you know how you mentioned a lot of it is to do with cyberbullying, and because it's so public, and I think because there's a lot of humiliation involved, like when I was about 17, I thought something that I wrote down was like something that I at the time thought was really, really embarrassing was going to be revealed, and I was totally like, I thought my life was over, and literally a few years later I look back on it and just laugh about it. But with regard to the cyberbullying stuff, in some countries, European countries, they've got this, right to be forgotten. Like you can insist that social media companies and stuff delete the stuff that's online about you, and I think maybe that would help.
Yeah, I don't... Thanks for the call, Wikawia. That's certainly something I want to get into because I'm not a fan of the right to be forgotten, so to speak, because what that essentially suggests, right, is that a person has the right to control what other people know about them after that information is already made available. And of course, you don't have that right. People know that I'm into guys. To say that I have the right to make people forget that or any other detail or just even the fact that I exist is to suggest that I have the right to go into their heads and cut out this particular bit of information that I don't want them to have anymore.
Yeah, it's insane. So what they're doing in the EU is that if you say you've been convicted of a crime and you did your sentence in prison and you get out, and you can then go to Google and say, take this off the search engine. I don't want people to know about this anymore.
Well, as I understand it, it's far more encompassing than that, where you don't have to have been in prison for a crime or anything like that. You can just say, hey, I don't want this information to be available any longer. And places like Google and Facebook and YouTube are required by European law to take it down. As silly as that is, they seem to be required. And that's why, the European Union is accused of having its own sort of great firewall, because all of that information, it's still available. We still have it here in the United States. It's only being blocked in your countries.
Oh yeah, VPN.
You're not forgotten. You just have restricted access to the information. This is the Call to Freedom. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more of this discussion about suicide and what people are doing to kids.
Oh,
Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom. And maybe you want to have sex with prostitutes and then arrest them. Or bust people for drugs and then sell the drugs on the side for a little bonus. If you've ever wanted to enjoy the power rush of being a cop without all the paperwork, then you should try the Thin Blue Line game, which can be found at thinbluelinegame.com. It's the only card game in the world that allows you to shoot someone over a broken taillight and then escape accountability with the magical phrase, I feared for my life. Typical cop stuff. Get it now at thinbluelinegame.com. Assault and battery is not included, but for a limited time, you can order your copies and use the coupon code CTF to have all shipping costs waived. So go get it. That's thinbluelinegame.com. And we've been talking about bullying, cyberbullying, and this alarming data from various institutions showing that 43-ish, I don't remember the exact number, but
about 43%.
43% of children or people under 18 who have gone to the ER for suicidal ideation or suicide attempts were between the ages of 5 and 11.
Yeah.
And we're just stunned by that because neither of us can fathom anything that is going on in the world of your average 5-year-old that would make them suicidal.
What has happened to American families? I don't get it.
See, that's not a question that I even care for. I don't care what's happened to American families, because that's a right-wing kind of question. That's a conservative question. Our traditional families are under attack, and that's why children are being suicidal, because Jim has 2 daddies, so he's suicidal for that reason or whatever,
Not what I was getting at.
No, I know you well enough to know that's not what you were getting at, but the question has so many connotations of that type of mentality that, to me, I'm not concerned with the family aspect of it, because I don't think family is even necessary to the process. I'm more concerned with society as a whole and what we're doing that is making people so sick.
Let me try that again. What are people who are raising kids doing to their kids to cause them to think about suicide?
Yeah, and I don't know. I can't imagine. According to data from the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, the majority of the United States faces a severe shortage of practicing child and adolescent psychiatrists, with fewer than 17 providers available per 100,000 children. So you know what the solution would be? Let's ration it out, right?
Right.
Let's implement this policy that will add a lot of new customers without adding a single new provider. This means many families face long wait times, which can lead to the worsening of a child's underlying mental health condition and an eventual need for more treatment sessions than if the condition had been addressed in its early stages. CNN has a weird enjoyment for writing out people's qualifications at length, because the second half of that paragraph is just that. And that's not the first time within this article they did it. Like, dude, I don't care. End your sentence after explain Jennifer Maltone, a psychologist. Okay, done. Move on.
Yeah, well, you kind of do have to say where they work. And where they work is 3/4 of that half of the paragraph.
True. The available qualified providers face another challenge: communicating with other systems caring for children. So they're not going to actually...
Whoa, wait. Systems caring for children? Are we having the village idiots take care of our kids now?
We know we are, because that's what the school system is. And I bother a lot of people by daring to point that out. But the truth of the matter is that when you turn your children over to the state to be educated, they are raising your children for you.
Yep.
They're not just teaching them the raw scientific facts. They're not just teaching them how to read, mathematics, and all of that. They're teaching them how to be productive members of society, how to walk on the right side of the hallway, how to look before you burst through a door, how to treat other people with decency and things like that. And a lot of these are good, yes. But there is also an increasingly dominant trend toward leftism, and that is also being raised. Your kids are also being raised underneath that ideology. So that is certainly one of the systems in place, and we are, well, not we, because I don't have kids by choice, but they are turning children over to the village idiots and going, here, I can't be bothered. Will you raise my kid for me?
That's about what's going on.
It is. And when you suggest to them that they should raise their own kids and not enlist them in public schools for other people to raise them, they go, well, I don't have time. Why in the hell did you have children if you don't have the time to raise them? You irresponsible, idiotic piece of garbage.
Oh, my.
And I say that to every single parent out there who has the audacity to say with a straight face that they don't have the time to properly raise their children.
Well, families, two-parent families have to work 2 jobs just to make ends meet. And they literally, and then pay for the child care, which the price of that's gone through the roof.
No, they still have time. The average person isn't working 12 hours days like I do, and I still have time if I really wanted to raise a child.
Well, where would your child be while you were at work?
Well, I would be raising that child to not drink bleach and things like that while I wasn't home. So they would be at home playing video games and watching television or something.
Okay.
I mean, Obviously, I wouldn't leave a 3-year-old there at home.
Well, the 3-year-old's got to be somewhere.
Yeah, but I mean, the person with whom I had this child could have a different work schedule than I do. Maybe they work during the day where I work mostly at night, So they could be at home with the child. And while they're at work, I would be at home with the child. And between the two of us, we could do a fair bit of raising of that child. Obviously, there would be some other person involved in this equation in the first place, since it takes two people to have a child.
Yes, that it does.
So we are assuming that this other person is somewhat involved, because I also would not have a child unless I was 100% certain that this person and I were going to be together long enough to actually finish the task of raising this child, which is yet another reason that I have chosen to remain childless. I don't want to be with somebody for that long. There might be a few people out there who could just keep my interest for that length of time, but for the most part, dude, I'm going to get bored 7 years into that relationship. I'm telling you right now, if we get married, we're going to divorce 7 years later. And that's why I'm not getting married. Because I know myself. I get bored very, very easily. That's why I do so many different things to occupy my time. But, the cyberbullying in particular is an issue for kids. And when you factor in things like adults engaging in it, which a lot of adults have gone at least to jail for encouraging other kids to cyberbully kids, it becomes really problematic, because it's true, the average child does not have the fortitude and constitutional strength to deal with those sorts of targeted attacks on them. And that's tragic. I'm not sure there's really anything a parent can do that would provide their child with that inner strength. That's something that just has to be sort of forged there for themselves.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that.
But the psychologists are worried that, we're seeing an acceleration of the rate of suicidal ideation among people ages 5 to 11, and that we have not yet seen the peak. So they are concerned it could be worse. Obviously it could always be worse.
Yeah, it could get worse.
I'm not sure how much pressure your average child is really under. But if your school is putting your child under so much pressure that suicide happens to be the way that they choose to deal with it, you're a failure as a parent. And I would again ask you why you don't have the time to raise that child yourself. Because the people who are raising your child are making your child suicidal. And if you're such a bad parent that you're going to let your child continue in that environment, despite being made suicidal from the people that are raising him or her, then you suck as a parent. And I'm not going to say your kids should be taken away from you, because that's force and aggression and things like that. But if your kid wants to leave, I'd be all for it.
No.
Screw that. Screw you, mom. Screw you, dad. You suck at this. I'm going home. Figure of speech. Going elsewhere, at least.
Going somewhere else.
Yeah. And of course, I've been accused, I meant to mention this a moment ago, but as I said earlier, I believe that a person does have the right to take their own life if they choose to. And somebody asked me, well, what about gay people? Because a lot of gay people are suicidal. So are a lot of trans people. I was like, yeah. I don't think these characteristics impact the fact that they have the right to kill themselves. And he said, well, that's homophobic. So I'm homophobic because I think that the life of a gay person belongs to the life of that gay person.
That isn't even sensible.
No, it's certainly not. But that's the kind of warped thinking that goes on in people's heads when it comes to the subject of suicide and whether or not someone can take their own lives. This is the Call to Freedom. We're going to move on. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom. As always, I'm your host, Aria, author of Dancing in Hellfire, which you can find on Amazon. And I'm joined in the studio today by
Michael Hampton. I'm not the author of any books yet, but I'll work on that.
It's always good. I'm working on another. It should be released sometime during the summer. I'm not sure on the exact date yet, called Beyond Words and Labels. Sort of a play on Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil. So, and it's along the same lines, although it's actually closer from what I hear because I still haven't read it. But it's actually closer to The Ego in Its Own by Max Stirner than it is to Nietzsche. But the similarities between Nietzsche and Stirner are pretty glaring anyway, even as I've never actually read Stirner again. But that's what people tell me who have read him. Now, we've got another story here because I don't really want to talk about suicide anymore. And I had it in front of me, and I moved it, and now I can't find it. So that's always good. So what would you write your book about?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't.
Well, that's usually the first step.
Yeah, figuring out what to write is always the first step. So,
but Trump is in the news as always.
Again,
yeah. For this time, telling his Border Patrol people to ignore the law and to just sort of do what he wants them to do. And the Border Patrol agents who are actually in control there, their supervisors and things like that, have told them to ignore the president because they're not really allowed to break the law.
Right. According
to the Washington Examiner, what in God's name is Calexico?
It's a city.
Calexico is a city?
Yes,
okay.
It's in California.
Interesting.
I believe.
President Trump reportedly told Border Patrol agents at the southern border to break the law and not let migrants into the country. CNN reports that behind the scenes during his visit to Calexico on Friday, Trump told Border Patrol officials to tell migrants that they are no longer permitted to enter the country. And if judges in California objected, to say, sorry, judge, I can't do it. We don't have the room, which is not how this works.
Yeah, it's not how any of this works.
But Trump is not the smartest tool in the shed. After Trump departed, Border Patrol leaders told their agents to ignore the president's comments because they would be breaking the law. CBP says Calexico agents have apprehended 12% more illegal aliens in fiscal 2019 compared to the same time frame in 2018, attempting to enter the country hidden in trains. Now, I again have to reiterate the position that if somebody wants to come to the United States, they should be, free to do that.
Yeah, they should be able to cross there shouldn't be a border in the first place.
There certainly shouldn't be, and it certainly shouldn't have walls around it and things of that nature. That's silly and counter-effective.
I'm not for open borders. I'm for non-existent borders and non-existent states.
Some weird thing just popped up. It appears to be an ad. Very curious. Don't know where that came from. But okay, so they're apprehending more people who have not done the paperwork to get the state's permission to enter the United States.
Because that's so difficult. That's extremely difficult to get.
At the Republican Jewish Leadership Coalition's annual meeting in Las Vegas on Saturday, Trump knocked the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals and said of the border, "We're full, our system is full, our country is full. I'm sorry, it's very simple."
It's very simple. Our country is empty. Empty. E-M-P-T-Y, empty.
Yeah, there are huge portions of the land that are empty between the West Coast and the East Coast. Sure, New York
got room
is
for
full.
Millions and millions and millions of more people.
San Francisco is full. Well, I hear that, you can technically fit like the entire population of the Earth within the United States and still have plenty of arable land.
You could fit the entirety of the population of the planet into the space of Connecticut.
I don't know about that. Well, I mean, sure, I guess technically you could fit everybody there, but you wouldn't have arable land or anything like that.
Well, all the rest of the land would be arable.
Yeah, but okay. The point I'm making is that we have plenty of room to invite people in and still have plenty of arable land.
Right, that we do. We can, if we can't build horizontally, we can still build vertically.
Yeah, as they're doing in New York and San Francisco and things like that. And of course, I don't like those kinds of large cities.
But lots of people do.
Yeah, a lot of people are insane.
Well, Yeah, that's true. But
I hate New York. I have been through the city of New York once. I will never go back. Unless it's to see a perfect circle. That would be the only time I would be willing to.
I only go through New York. I don't go to it.
Yeah. Well, when I moved to New Hampshire, I avoided the state of New York entirely and went through upstate New York instead. It was also to avoid the toll rolls because when we passed through last year, the year before last, on the way to PorcFest, just in the span of about 15 minutes, we got hit with like $60 worth of tolls.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Absolutely insane.
They just hit you and hit you and hit you. And yeah, they've got a toll every other mile. And well, I-95 from about Virginia up northward is half tolled and they're expensive. So.
Well, in other news, Bernie Sanders is a newfound millionaire, it would seem.
Newfound?
That's what...
Wasn't he always a millionaire?
I don't think so. I'm assuming not. He has a newfound millionaire status, so I'm assuming he was not a millionaire. Certainly had plenty of houses as a result of his 2016 campaign against Hillary. But he's definitely wealthier than your average American.
He's wealthier. I mean, Bernie is one of the 1%. Okay,
absolutely.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah, but he's got, 3 houses, one of which is a beach house? I mean, he's doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders is finally going to release his tax returns, according to CNN, which is interesting because all of this talk about Trump not releasing his, and it seems that,
Bernie hadn't gotten around to releasing his, huh?
No. But questions over how he handles wealth in the context of his campaign for the 2020 Democratic presidential nomination remain, and the early returns should be concerning to Sanders backers. In an interview with the New York Times on Tuesday, Sanders said that April the 15th is coming, adding, we wanted to release 10 years of tax returns. April 15, 2019 will be the 10th year, so I think you will see them. Why wouldn't he have released them earlier?
Will see them? What kind of language is that? I think you will see them. He's supposed to be releasing his tax returns. Why doesn't he say, I'll release them on April 15th? Instead, he says, I think you will release them. What is he smoking? What is he trying to not say?
Well, he's from Vermont, so he might be smoking weed. Reminded by the Times reporter that he is now someone of considerable means, Sanders retorted, I wrote a best-selling book. If you write a best-selling book, you can be a millionaire too. Yeah, and I guess that's technically true.
Yeah,
but in order his book isn't going to be good. It's going to appeal to people who already like his political ideology. So he's sort of missing a few steps there. Because for a politician to write a best-selling book, they have to become an extremely successful politician already, which is going to make them very wealthy. That's why Ron Paul never became a millionaire from writing books. He may be a millionaire. I don't know how much money he has, but he's certainly no Bernie Sanders. Sanders got a pass on some of his acerbicness during the 2016 campaign because A, most people didn't think he could win, and B, others found it part of his cantankerous but righteous personality. Well,
righteous,
he's certainly not righteous.
Self-righteous, maybe, but...
Yeah, I mean, that's generally true of the socialist left, though, is that they are self-righteous and smug as they peddle ideology that, results in millions of deaths every single time that somebody tries it.
Yeah, they are holding you in contempt, either secretly or less secretly. Bernie was relatively open about it.
Yeah, and that's socialism. They're smug, they're insufferable, and this is the call to freedom. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom, and as always, you're invited to give us a call. That number is 603-283-6160. Again, that's 603-283-6160. Or if you prefer clearer quality, you can use the Discord call-in lines, which you can find at discord.lrn.fm. And I should inform you now that if you just joined the server like 20 minutes ago, we're not going to just randomly take your call on the air. Because we are smarter than that here on the Call to Freedom.
We know how it works.
Well, we may not be smarter than that. True. But we do know how this works. But we've been talking about Bernie Sanders, and this is coming to us from the Clinton News Network. That's CNN. And, of course, well, I mean, they're about to go hard Clinton here. Close your eyes and imagine if Hillary Clinton, who beat Sanders for the Democratic nomination. I don't know if beat is really a fair way to characterize that, because it has been proven that Hillary stacked the DNC against Bernie Sanders. Mm-hmm. Who, when asked about the extent of her wealth, said, "I wrote a best-selling book. If you write a best-selling book, you can be a millionaire too." She would have been pilloried. People would have blasted Clinton for being out of touch with the average person who obviously doesn't have the opportunity to write a book. Everybody, the average person does have the opportunity to write a book.
Yeah, anybody can write a book.
Best-selling or not. Telling the average middle-class American that they can be rich if they only write a best-selling book is like telling them that if they would just star in a movie, then they could be a big movie star too.
Yeah, you have to. Not everyone can be a big movie star or have a bestseller. You can be in a movie and you can write a book, but that you may not be in a blockbuster movie.
Well, you can't necessarily just be in a movie either.
Yeah, somebody has to think you can act.
But I mean, it's technically true. Not for almost everyone, because it's not realistic. In 2016, Clinton was the front runner. Well, barely. Even if we ignore the fact that the DNC was stacked to side with her, she was still barely the front runner.
Right.
And most of the attention and energy in the political media was focused on her. Yes, you might have had something to do with that, CNN. But now Sanders is one of the front runners, which means that he simply cannot be as dismissive, curt, or out of touch as his write a best-selling book comments comes out. Now, there's a lot of chat going on here, and it's hard to stay focused on what I'm doing, because we just joined a new platform called DLive, which people can find at dlive.tv/lrn.fm. And it's like a Twitch thing. It's pretty cool. And we are doing significantly better on it than we have done on Twitch.
Wow.
But there is a lot of chat going on in it, and it is... I like interacting with the people who are watching the show and things like that. Mm-hmm. So I like to stop and read it to see if any of it is actually relevant or things that we can comment on. The last question is, what are these treasure boxes? Well, from what we understand about DLive, is that it's sort of blockchain based, and I have to do more research into this because I'm not sure exactly what that entails. But it would seem that if you watch a stream for a long enough period of time, you unlock these rewards, and you can unlock them, and that's what the treasure boxes are. So go check that out. That's dlive.tv/lrn.fm. It will probably be dlive.lrn.fm soon enough. But at the moment, dlive.tv/lrn.fm. Then there is the broader problem of Sanders' wealth as it relates to his core campaign message that millionaires and billionaires have cornered far too much wealth and power in this country and need to be reined in by a more activist federal government.
A more activist federal... Come on. It's too activist already.
Now that Sanders is one of those millionaires and billionaires, it could complicate that message, not unlike his beach house and his appeal as the underfunded outsider taking on the moneyed interest in Washington. I mean, he's always been out of touch. I mean, that's what socialists do. That's why we have high school. That's why we have colleges and universities filled with professors who peddle socialism, because it places them above the average person. And Sanders, being one of the ruling elite, gets placed there as well.
And being in academia, they're out of touch.
Well, I mean, it doesn't really matter if they're out of touch or not, as long as they can convince people that, they're the elite. They're part of the elite, like the intelligentsia and the political class have worked together as long as there has been a political class and an intellectual, quote-unquote, elite. They prop each other up. It's just sort of what they seem to do. And the ideology being put forward by these professors and instructors is going to be one that keeps Bernie Sanders at the top, because Bernie Sanders is going to do the same by helping to keep them at the top, even though colleges and universities are increasingly obsolete. It's all about securing their stake in the world. But, I mean, this is standard for socialism. It's always, you should give up your money, but I should keep mine.
Yeah, that's how it works. That's how it always works.
Yeah, it is how it always works. But Faiz Shakir, Sanders' campaign manager, told CNN on Tuesday night that the senator believes in opportunity for all, and the fact that he is somebody who has personally benefited from the opportunity is something that he feels should be a shared opportunity with everyone else.
Yeah, if he actually believed in opportunity for all, he would be a capitalist.
He's made some money off a book, and I think that the opportunity that he has had is evaporating for so many others. He feels that strongly. But again, anyone can write a book. It probably won't be a best-selling book. And if that's the kind of opportunity he's referring to, sure, technically everyone has that opportunity. But there's a lot of groundwork that has to be done to make a book successful. Stephen King initially wrote many, many things that would not get published. And then he finally wrote Carrie. A publisher finally took it up, and it wasn't even that successful. The same is true of Dean Koontz and a number of other writers as well, like R.A. Salvatore, who, created the character Drist.
Yeah.
Most of the time, they spent 15 to 20 years writing various stories and books prior to that before they finally got one that made it to...
Wallpapered their house with rejection letters.
Yeah, before they finally made it to number 77 on the New York Times bestseller list. And then, sure, they had the publicity, they had the backing of a publisher, so they can put money into advertisements and things like that. But prior to that, and if you're somebody like Bernie Sanders, you already have that infrastructure. It's why no previous president has ever been told, no, we're not gonna publish your book. It's because they have a built-in guarantee of sales by whoever happens to agree with them politically.
Right.
And who is an avid reader. Like Hillary Clinton's book, which was 300 pages of excuses about why she totally didn't blow the election.
And, a lot of people will just buy those books and stick them on the shelf and never read them. They just have them there as talismans.
But I mean, she has such strong backing from the established system that Amazon was deleting negative reviews of her book.
Okay.
Alexis has asked on D-Live if this is a tranny podcast. Well,
at the moment,
I would suggest that it is. It isn't always. But I can't argue that right now, yes, it is a tranny podcast.
Well,
so thanks for checking it out. This is the Call to Freedom, and we're going to dig further into Bernie Sanders, so don't go anywhere. All right, welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom. As always, you're invited to give us a call at 603-283-6160. Again, that's 603-283-6160. Or you can use the Discord call-in lines, which you can find at discord.lrn.fm, or just join the chat there. Although you should be aware that if you say a bunch of stupid things in a very short period of time, you'll be sent to the toxic user room, which, I'm sorry to burst people's bubbles, was not created for them. I think it was created primarily because of mouth-breathing Dullard.
Yeah, that was... he was the original toxic user.
And he just sort of got sent there. And what I'm looking forward to here, and the reason I keep tagging him, I am looking forward to him going, against not Schmeat and these others. That is going to be glorious because he hates everybody.
Yeah, you throw a bunch of toxic users together. I imagine that would be
right. It's going to be glorious. I cannot wait to get off work tonight and see what sort of crap show is going on in the toxic user room. It's going to be great. But we've been talking about Bernie Sanders. Talking to the Times, he tried to draw a line between himself and the likes of President Trump, a self-described billionaire. Not being a billionaire, not having investments in Saudi Arabia, Wherever he has investments all over the world, mine will be a little bit more boring, Sanders said of his returns when compared to those of Trump's. But of course, the president has never released any of his tax returns and pledged again Wednesday morning that he is under no obligation to do so.
I guess that's true.
Life Genesis has asked on Twitch, who is the gray-haired man? So if that's a question you would like to answer.
That's me. I'm Michael Hampton, and I just sit here and talk occasionally.
Fair enough.
I am not trans. I am not this or that or the other thing. I just say my piece and we go on.
Well, he says hello, Michael.
Welcome to Call to Freedom.
On the most practical level, Sanders is correct. He is not as rich as Trump. Well, he's not as rich as Trump claims to be.
Yeah, we're not. Are we actually sure how much money?
Yes,
Trump
Chief Arrow, who has asked on D Live. This is not a copy of the stream. We do interact with our viewers. I have the chat window pull up in front of me. I think I was just talking about that, in fact, before we went out to break.
last segment we were talking about that.
Like Genesis says, they're disappointed. They thought you were a trans woman.
Who, me?
Yeah. He's joking, or she's joking. But I thought you would enjoy that.
Now, if you want another trans woman, is there another trans woman in Keene?
Not that I'm aware of. There's a few trans men.
Okay.
I do know one person who wants to be a trans woman, but I mean they're like bald, so it's super awkward. My heart goes out to them, but
well, that's why God invented wigs.
Yeah, true. And a lot of women wear wigs. I don't. I did when I first started, and that's when you see pictures of me with the long brunette hair. That's a wig. I no longer wear one. Some people seem to think I do. It's like, yeah, I bought a bright red freaking wig. Right.
No, it's
to just be as totally attention grabbing as possible to make sure people inspected my hair to see that I'm wearing a wig. What kind of idiocy is that? That's why it has brown roots here too, because it's a $400 wig.
It's all natural hair coloring.
I don't know if the coloring is natural. I've had people surprised, though, on that subject. I pointed out on Facebook one day, years ago, or a year ago, because I've been dyeing my hair this color for a very long time. Like, such a long time that I had to get it dyed temporarily for work. And it was very difficult to get the brown to stay in, but I finally did. And when I bleached it in preparation for dyeing it red, it turned back pink.
Huh.
That is how long I've been dyeing my hair, that it just seems to think that it's red. But I pointed out that, it was time to re-dye my hair again. And it probably about is right now. I haven't looked carefully. And he goes, you don't want people to know you dye your hair? Why are you saying this publicly? Because I think most people have figured out that this is not a natural hair color.
Yeah, this particular shade of red doesn't really occur in nature.
I would hope it would be obvious to just every random person who sees me that it's not a natural hair color. But anyway, back to
obvious. Why not talk about it?
Yeah, I don't have any shame about it. I don't have shame in general.
That's what makes you so entertaining.
Like yesterday when I said I will defend the right of people to have consensual sex with dogs. Yep. 3 times I said that. But Chris turned out to be right. The first time I did say that I will defend people who have sex with dogs. And that's not necessarily true. But actually what I said was I have been defending people who have sex with dogs, referring to the previous 20 minutes of conversation.
Right.
Because in that sense, I had been defending them, but only insofar as they have the right to do that, I suppose. But I'm certainly not going to defend the behavior or somebody engaging in it or things like that. You can listen to the excerpt that you can find at calltofreedomlive.podbean.com if you'd like to hear that.
That's been clipped. You can listen to it, and we can go on.
Yeah. But, so Sanders is technically correct. He's not a billionaire, as Trump claims to be. I would not agree, Ruru the Great, that dogs are sexy. To each their own. But I would not agree.
So is this D-Live going to be just a whole new source of trolls then?
It doesn't seem like we're being trolled there, I know. I mean, we're actually doing pretty well there.
Okay.
And the combination of Sanders now being a member of the economic strata he has long derided and his totally tone-deaf answer on how he got there spells at least potential trouble down the line for the Vermont senator. And that's where they just sort of ended the article. I thought it was much longer than that because I'm not even I'm not even a third of the way through the scroll bar, but look, it's because the rest of this article is just spammy ads.
Oh.
What a piece of junk. And it just keeps going. The scroll bar just keeps getting shorter and shorter. Good.
Oh, I hate that. I hate when websites do that.
I do too.
Infinite scroll. Especially when they actually have a footer on the website and you want to click something on the footer. So you hit end on the keyboard to go to the bottom, and then it pops up with more stuff.
Yep. Well, it's apparently snowing again in parts of the United States. I realize that's a random subject to just jump to, but I was hoping that the most recent snow was going to be the last one. It may not be. I have not heard of PewDiePie's T-Series or T-Series trying to take down PewDiePie's music videos. I have not. I do know that PewDiePie has joined DLive, evidently, and that's expected to bring in a rather large influx of people, which we're looking forward to. But as far as somebody making some sort of targeted effort to take him down, I don't see it happening. We do have the first picture of a black hole, Life Genesis. I'm looking forward to talking about that. But at the moment, we're talking about Bernie Sanders and his potential to run for 2020. And I really don't think it's going to be a problem to his supporters that he's a millionaire. They didn't seem to care that he has a beach house and that he purchased this beach house, which I think was valued at $600,000, if I'm remembering correctly, right after he deferred to Hillary and gave her the uncontested victory. Like immediately after that, he goes and buys a beach house. And of course, Hillary is someone who we know to be heavily corruptible, to just be heavily corrupt. My fear has always been that Hillary Clinton was going to run again in 2020. I think that we have dodged a bullet and that this old, dried up prunus bitch is finally aware that she is not welcome in politics. And that the only thing that kept her going in politics through the last 10 years or so was that people kept appointing her to various offices that didn't require her to be voted upon by the American public. She's not a very popular person. But you wouldn't get that impression by reading the Pantsuit Nation, which is this Facebook group that I guess I'm still a member of, technically, where all they do all day, every day is cry about various social justice warrior-ish things and how Hillary, who makes a mockery out of all of these actual social issues, didn't win the election. But she's a Democrat. And this is the Call to Freedom. Don't go anywhere. We're going to move on, so stay tuned. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom, and I'd like to remind you that our podcasts have moved. They're no longer being uploaded to Spreaker. Instead, they can be found at Podbean, which you can find at calltofreedomlive.podbean.com. You will also find a couple of clips there that are of interest. When we go off on these little rabbit holes, as I call them, like yesterday, where we came into a bestiality rabbit hole for some reason.
You and Chris went into that rabbit hole.
Chris dragged me into that rabbit hole, and he baited me, and I think he knows he was doing it when he said, oh, well, that's not something I think you want to say. He knew I would turn around and look directly into the camera and say it. So I think he baited me on purpose, but it was good entertainment. I loved it. The last 15 minutes of that show were just spot on. Totally wild. That seems to be sort of a trend for Tuesdays, though. I mean, it seems like if you just put me and Chris into microphones together, we get increasingly wild.
And crazy and, yeah, just ridiculous.
But it was a lot of fun. It was, the show is always a lot of fun. Getting off of Bernie Sanders and the Democratic 2020 nomination. Well, I guess we can't because we were actually asked on DLive, which Ian has already set that up. You can find it using dlive.lrn.fm. So that's a much simpler URL to convey to people.
Yep.
We were asked to make comments about Andrew Yang,
Okay.
the guy running for the 2020 nomination, who is the $1,000 UBI for every single person thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I hate the UBI because I'm of the opinion that it is the responsibility of an organism to secure its own survival. And I think the UBI is like a pig farmer saying, I will give you a certain amount of slop every single day. I mean, it creates dependency on the state, which is certainly something that I don't like. It's why I'm not a fan of social welfare programs either.
Yeah. Well.
And people say, oh, I mean, yeah, I would like to have $1,000 too, just given to me for, hey, here's $1,000 every month, but not if other people have to pay against their will for that to happen.
You know, I agree with you, but I also think that I probably wouldn't put up too much opposition if they actually did implement a UBI, because it would collapse the state so fast there wouldn't even be another election. The U.S. would just be gone.
I've actually looked into Yank's. It hasn't worked yet anywhere it's been implemented, as far as I'm aware. They've ultimately
they've done trials
undone
and
it.
Abruptly canceled them.
Yeah, but his plan is to pay for this with a value-added tax. Now, those who are unfamiliar, it's basically a new tax put on every level of the production process. So my entire confusion about this, it's not even confusion, it's everybody else is confused. I'm the only one, well, I'm not the only one, but we're the only ones seeing this with a straight face. So what he wants to do is he wants to increase taxes commensurately to pay for every single person to have $1,000 given to them every single month. So your taxes must necessarily increase accordingly,
right,
to cover that $1,000 per month. So his proposal is, I want to put a gun to your head and make you give me $1,000 a month. And then, because I'm such a nice guy, I'm going to give you $1,000 a month.
Yeah, and then suddenly it's only worth $800 and something because there's a 20% VAT on everything.
Well, even if they manage to tweak the numbers so perfectly, which they wouldn't be able to do, and I recognize that, and we learned in the 20th century from the Austrian economists that it can't be done because there's too much data for them to attempt to crunch. But even if they were able to perfectly balance the value-added tax with the UBI, such that the VAT actually covered the $1,000 a month that everybody was getting, and the average person who was getting this $1,000 a month was not paying in more than $1,000 a month for the value-added tax, it wouldn't do any good. At best, it evens out to zero. That's an absolute best.
That's a best-case scenario.
Yeah. It's completely stupid. It's totally useless. The much more likely scenario is that it's just a way to control people. It's just a way to create dependency on the state, because $1,000 a month, it's not a lot of money, right? But it is enough to live in rural Mississippi, and things like that. And then if you're subsisting solely off the UBI, you probably qualify for some sort of Obamacare subsidy, food stamps, electricity subsidies, and all that kind of crap, right?
Right.
So you're probably going to be ultimately netting somewhere between $2,400 and $3,000 a month just from the government. Never have to work again.
Yeah, it's enough to live on.
And you're completely dependent upon the state at that point. You shouldn't bite the hand that feeds, they say. And that's what would be required for people to ultimately overcome the state. And if we allow ourselves into a position where the state is feeding us and closing us and just paying us to exist, just to keep us, where the state is responsible for keeping us alive, then we've doomed ourselves to never have freedom again, because we've let ourselves become dependent on the state. And the state has no interest in letting us have freedom, because it's counter to their own goals.
Yeah.
But so that's our thoughts on Andrew Yang, that even if this idea was workable, it ultimately is just going to be a net zero. No, we are not really free now. We've been asked by Decker on DLive. We are certainly not free. You can't even take a crap without the government involving themselves in it. And I think that's probably the best demonstration ever that you're not free. There's all kinds of things you can't do. Or if you do them, people with guns will come and assault you. And if you go, hey, I don't want to be kidnapped, and you resist, they will shoot you.
Because that's what they do.
So we're absolutely not free. What a mess, man. But what they do Joe Biden says, who's probably not really Joe Biden, obviously, says we should tax flushes for the environment. We do tax flushes already. They are required to have a certain efficiency to not go beyond a certain water usage.
Yeah, you haven't bought a toilet lately, have you?
Yeah,
because they now they have to have these all these environmental standards. They have to be. Here's the thing that is driving people crazy: is these so-called low-flow toilets, where they can only, I think it's like 1 point something gallons per flush, which is not always enough to make your crap go down.
All right, I thought yesterday was bad, but now we're talking about flushing feces.
Well, no, we're not talking about having sex with dogs, though. We're just talking about something everyone actually does. Okay,
fair enough. Everyone poops.
Everyone poops. Everyone flushes the toilet. And
it is taxed. It is regulated. The government has involved themselves. And even if they were not involved in the actual flushing of feces, they tax the septic lines, the sewer systems, all of that.
Yep.
So it's all regulated. It's all taxed. Everything about the process is taxed. The light bulbs that you use so that you can see are taxed and regulated. You can't get the ones that actually light up quickly anymore. You have to get the little
the
curly
incandescent
pigtail
bulbs.
ones. Yeah.
Those are a distant memory.
Yeah. So it's all heavily regulated. Our freedoms have been heavily curtailed. And the problem is that we don't even know what's happened because we have no point of comparison with which to make the assessment in the first place.
Yeah, it's so gradual, most people don't notice.
Like if you were to go back in time to the 1902 and forever make it illegal for anyone to drive a vehicle that had only two wheels, you would come back to the modern era and there would be not a single motorcycle or bicycle in sight. But the people there would not be aware that they had bicycles and motorcycles stolen from them by legislation.
Right.
Because it would be something that they just missed out on entirely. How do you know that you're missing something as a result of federal laws prohibiting the creation of it? You can't.
You have no way of knowing what you missed. That's the seen and the unseen.
Yeah. So we can never know what we're missing out on because of federal regulations. But I know of at least one would be home laser hair removal kits. Those would be available at Walmart if it was not for the federal government.
Really? How did the government government kill those?
Lasers that powerful are too dangerous for the average person.
Mm.
The same reason you can't
you can
get
have a laser pointer for your cat, and that's not too dangerous.
No. Well, those are very weak lasers. You're not going to burn out hair using one of those.
Yeah, well, you might burn out someone's eye.
Yeah, but what we're literally... I don't even know if they would do that. I know they're rumored to do that, but I don't know if they're actually powerful enough. I've shined one directly into my eyes before, but I also stared at the solar eclipse with glasses that ultimately were not eclipse glasses, and I have permanently damaged my left eye's vision because of it. Oops. Yeah, this is the call. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom broadcast, as always, from the Liberty Radio Network studios here in Keene, New Hampshire. I am your host, as always, Aria DeMezzo of Aria Uncensored, a new show. Will be on D Live as well, it would seem. Might be joining the LRN.FM family of shows and be broadcast over pirate radio. We aren't entirely sure. It airs Tuesday nights at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right after Free Talk Live. And I do the show completely topless. And I don't watch my mouth. Callers are also not expected to watch their mouths, so that makes it a little more exciting. Of course, you can't say racist things and things like that. We will drop the call and move on. Or, I mean, if you can say something racist, just like you can here on the Call to Freedom, But it can't just be racist for the point of being racist. You can't just call in and shout racial slurs and things like that. But if you're a racist who happens to call into the show and you mentioned that during the course of the conversation, we're not going to drop the call for that. We will dispute you, more than likely. And I'm joined in the studio today by
Michael Hampton from BitcoinHistory.com. That's it.
Yeah.
I've got nothing more to say.
No, that's not what I'm laughing about, the toxic user room over here.
Oh, I don't even go in there.
Oh, it's so worth it because, we were correct. Schmeat and James are now going at it. Mm-hmm. And it is just absolutely glorious. You can check that out at discord.lrn.fm. We have 544 call-in lines there that you can use. We also take calls via our landline at 603-283-6160. So there are a lot of ways to reach us. Of course, we're Call to Freedom. We are not LRN.fm. We're on LRN.fm because we have we just joined DLive, and we have a lot of traffic there. A lot of people who probably just genuinely don't know what's going on. LRN.fm is a radio network, a pirate radio network that hosts shows like Call to Freedom ourselves and Free Talk Live, which comes on next, and is also on, I think, 192 radio stations across the...
190 and change. It will be close to 200.
That is not some bald guy sneaking, G. Vero. That's Rob. He's a friend of ours. He's really cool. He's just listening into the show, I guess. But getting back to the news and what's happening in the world, President Trump, we talked about earlier, for telling the Border Patrol people to just break the law. It'll be fine. Just tell the judge, yeah, I broke the law. Hey, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Rob, they said, hey. Hi, how are you? But he's gone even further than that.
What's he done now?
Well, on Wednesday, he suggested that it didn't really matter who he picks to replace Christian Nielsen as head of Homeland Security.
Oh, no.
Because the one who really runs the show at DHS is him.
Oh.
Now, he's probably not wrong in that, especially what appears to be an egotistical person, an egomaniac.
He's not
like
too
Trump.
far off.
And the way the executive branch is set up is, by picking the people he puts there and having the ability to fire them, he can pick figureheads who are just going to do whatever he tells them to do.
The thing is, you can't micromanage something as big as the U.S. government. It just doesn't work. You don't have enough time in your day.
No, and that was kind of the confusion around the French Revolution, and Thomas Paine made the point beautifully in his book, The Rights of Man, which if somebody who hasn't listened or read it, if you haven't read it, you definitely should, because he points out that, it wasn't the fact that King Louis was a tyrant that was the issue. It was that he was just a figurehead for what were 1,000 tyrannies. Mm-hmm. Just like we have today. They had
their own deep state.
Yeah, they have. Well, I don't know about the deep state nonsense. But they had their own bureaucracies. They had their own police forces. They had their own FBIs and all of that kind of nonsense, and DHSs and things like that.
And that's where the power was. Those are the people that you would interact with when they came to chop your head off.
Yeah, and the real issue that people had was that, he was the symbol of that entire institution, just like Trump becomes the symbol of our entire institution. So it's not that Trump is a dictator, it's that the entire U.S. government is a dictator.
No, he's the decider.
Well, he's not even that. He might think he is. But one of my favorite images of Donald Trump is him in the pretend Air Force uniform, just smiling like an idiot, with a little thought bubble going up of Ralph from The Simpsons going, I'm a military. Because he looks just like Ralph in that picture. I hate Donald Trump.
Don't we all?
But
I don't know anyone who actually likes him.
But in defense of Donald Trump, I don't even hate them. I just strongly dislike them, and I wish they were not in positions of power. I don't hate Donald Trump. I hope he lives a long life, and I hope he reforms and stops killing people and stops, saying relatively overt racist things like the Mexicans are drug dealers and rapists.
Yeah, which is ridiculous.
But he says, frankly, there's only one person who is running it. You know who that is? It's me, he declared outside the White House before hopping aboard Marine One for a trip to Joint Base Andrews and then on to a fundraising trip in Texas. He also praised his hardline immigration advisor, Stephen Miller, who asked if he had when asked if he had a shot at the powerful Homeland Security gig. Now, I don't really follow the kinds of crap the Trump administration does. I know they have a really high turnover rate.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, even higher than usual for a government.
Yeah, I don't know why this person was ousted as Homeland Security head.
They seem to go every year or two. They don't usually last that long because they're figureheads and their job is not so much to make decisions as it is to take the heat for things that go wrong.
Well, someone on DLive has asked, what are you? I am Aria de Mezzo, trans chick. I'm sure you noticed. So
are they only Are they not getting the audio? Are they not hearing what we're saying?
They may have muted it. I mean, I don't sit here and go, "Oh, I'm a trans person" every minute of the show.
Yeah.
In fact, I rarely say it unless something like that happens.
Somebody actually brings it up. We're sitting here making fun of President Trump, and they're like, "What are you?"
I mean, that's pretty standard. I mean, we very rarely talk about anything LGBT related here on the show. It tends to be just, people tuning in and asking it, which raises the topic. Mm-hmm. But although I am trans, this is not an LGBT show. It's been brought to my attention that everybody who is on the show is some type of LGBT. That is probably by accident.
We weren't planning it.
No, I didn't even know Chris was gay for a very long time. He doesn't seem like a gay dude.
No,
right?
you wouldn't guess. But, Bob, after you meet him, you're like, wait, these two are a couple? You wouldn't think of either of them.
I don't know. Maybe Bob.
Well, Bob maybe, but I don't.
But certainly,
Bob just strikes me as antisocial.
Life Genesis has asked on Twitch, who is Chris? Chris is our Tuesday co-host. There are three people on this show. Chris only does Tuesdays. There were others. There was Tom Gray, who was our evangelical Christian, who was going to return to the show for Fridays, but that was months ago that I asked him about that, and he was like, yeah, I can totally do it, and he has never yet tuned in.
Oh, well.
To actually, he did tune in once when we were talking about the United Methodist Church.
Yeah, we did get him on the phone for that.
But he was only on for like an hour, and then he left again, and that was disappointing. But it was nice when we had the evangelical Christian, the atheist, and the Muslim being Will Coley, who is no longer on the show. I'm just going to say that it's been 2 months now.
Yeah. We haven't heard from him in a while.
No, I sent him a message like 3 weeks ago, and he hasn't even opened it. So I'm going to say he's moved on with his life. So we wish him the best, and he'll always be welcome to return. I just don't think he's going to. So we had, for a very long time, for about a year, we had an evangelical Christian, a trans atheist, and a Muslim on the show every single day. And there was a lot of discussion, as one might imagine, but we never discussed LGBT issues or things like that unless it was just something really important that needed to be discussed. We didn't sit around talking about it because it's not really anything that I want to talk about. It's just me going about my life and people going, ew. I get enough of that. This is the Call to Freedom. We're going to tell you more about Donald Trump, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom, and as always, you're invited to give us a call. That number is 603-283-6160. Again, that's 603-283-6160, or you can use the Discord call-in lines, which you can find at discord.lrn.fm. And I would like to point out again to people, because we just joined the service today, we actually got to be the LRN Studios debut show on DLive, which is pretty cool.
Very nice.
We are now on DLive, which you can find with dlive.lrn.fm. It's a pretty cool little service. I actually think I like it probably more than Twitch. But we're certainly getting less trolls via DLive.
Yeah, I don't think we've really had a troll at all from DLive yet.
Well, we don't know for sure yet, but they attempted to get back in earlier, but it was just to ask Ian about the FBI raid, which they seem to really obsess over.
Yeah, I mean, come on, that's old news. That's 3 years old, and
yeah. But we had a story yesterday that we didn't actually get into because we got into a conversation about the nuances of having consensual sex with dogs. But apparently, a Secret Service agent has used an unknown USB flash drive and plugged it into his agency computer, which, of course, gave it a virus. And people are laughing at the idiocy of it.
Yep.
Coming to us from the Daily Beast, a Secret Service agent investigating Yuzhen Zhang's visit to Mar-a-Lago infected one of the agency's own computers with the malware carried in by the unannounced Chinese national, a move that provoked wide derision Monday from computer security professionals.
This is like Security 101, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You don't plug in unknown flash drives into your computer. And if you're a Secret Service agent, you should probably know that. And if you're investigating some Chinese national, for whatever reason, you would expect them to not plug in that national's USB drive on a whim. But it did carry malware, which did begin to infect the computer. So he powered down the machine.
Oops.
I would have, rather just unplugged the Ethernet connection so that it didn't spread and then let it do its own thing and see what happened as a result.
Well, it said it was a laptop, right? It could have been just on Wi-Fi, or worse, it could have had the embedded.
I mean, the point is, I would have just disconnected it from the internet, from the network. Well, I mean, every device can be disconnected from the network.
Well, you'd have to flip the thing over and pull the Wi-Fi card out.
No, you can disable the Wi-Fi card in Device Manager.
Okay. Well, yeah, okay.
Most laptops
if the
have
malware
a
doesn't
button.
Re-enable it.
I mean, most laptops have a button that you can press to disable the Wi-Fi adapter.
Mine doesn't.
Or it has a switch. I would bet that it does.
No
I have never
Nope.
seen one that didn't have either a switch or a keyboard shortcut that would do it. It's usually one of the
keyboard shortcut, but that's the soft switch. That's not a hard switch. Like I know what switches you're talking about. There's no hard switch on here.
Well, a soft switch would be fine. I don't see why that would be an issue. Sure, the malware could re-enable it, but you would know if it did. But you don't put an unknown USB drive into your computer, said Chris Weissapol, Chief Technology Officer at Veracode. That's in all the training everyone gets, even in your dumb corporate training. You even tell your mom that.
Yeah, you even tell your mom that. She may or may not listen, but you tell her.
Well, I think most people's mothers being told this are unlikely to end up with a random flash drive. But that's how we infected the centrifuges in Iran that were enriching uranium, was with an infected flash drive.
Yeah, wasn't it left out in the parking lot?
I don't know how they actually conveyed it.
And then somebody found it and brought it in and plugged it in, and that was all she wrote.
Yep. But their tweet highlighted the apparent gaffe, and it earned more than 3,000 retweets Monday as the computer security community executed a collective facepalm. Yeah.
Yep.
Whoa, said Kaspersky researcher Kurt Baumgartner. Never seen that USB execution thing before. And Eric O'Neill, a former FBI surveillance specialist, was a lot more generous than I would have been, saying that it sounds like an agent trying to crack the case before the cyber team got there.
Oh, somebody's trying to get all the credit for themselves, huh?
Yeah, and I don't think that's the case at all. I think he wanted to see what files were on it, and it never crossed his mind that it might be malware. Yeah, I certainly don't think he was like, oh, this is going to contain malware and things. Yeah.
Wasn't that what he just said?
I guess that could qualify as cracking the case, but yeah, okay, yeah, fair enough. O'Neill is correct. In a sworn affidavit filed after Zhang's arrest, so they arrested this guy, this Chinese national, who was doing something, I don't know, probably completely fabricated by the U.S. government or the FBI, because that's the kind of thing they do.
Right. You can't trust what they say.
The agency said that it discovered the malicious malware during a preliminary forensic examination of the thumb drive. Yeah, because
that is not a preliminary forensic examination, just sticking it in your computer.
No, but it sounds like they did a preliminary forensic examination.
Okay, so they actually did finally.
Yeah. After the agent had already plugged it into a computer and infected it.
Yeah, and the damage is
like
done.
an idiot. The biggest giveaway is that the review was cut short when the examining agent noticed a file installing itself onto the agent's machine.
Oh, so this preliminary forensic evaluation really was him plugging the drive into the laptop.
No, I don't think so.
That's what they seem to be saying.
I think the preliminary forensic examination came next.
I think it's in that sentence you skipped.
He stated that he had to immediately stop the analysis and shut off his computer to halt the corruption.
Yep.
I mean, there are, I can't even think of the term right now, but there are test farms and things like that where you can plug in these sorts of devices, virtual machines at least.
Right.
And you can let them run and see what they're going to do and uncover all of the forensic stuff you need to uncover without actually giving your Secret Service laptop a virus.
Exactly.
One would hope that the Secret Service would go through this level of training, but if they do, it seems to have been forgotten. But
this guy didn't get that training.
No, well, I'm sure he did, but he's forgotten it or ignored it. But, I mean, we've seen this quite a lot. People forget basic IT security pretty often, like Facebook asking people for their email address passwords and plenty of people giving them over. That's tech security 101 as well.
Right.
You don't give a third-party site your password to this other site, but plenty of people did it. So I'm not surprised to find that, a Secret Service agent is equally careless. There's certainly nothing special about them. They just get a special little badge that allows them to do things that the average person isn't allowed to do.
Sounds about right.
But forensic examiners don't usually interrupt malware when it's in the middle of giving itself away. For all you know, if the thing is doing something and you pull it out, it might detect that it's been seen. Forensically, it makes no sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense to pull the thing out while it's trying to infect your virtual machine sandbox. But you didn't plug it into a virtual machine sandbox. You plugged it into your laptop.
Yeah, and that was probably unwise. But, I don't think he probably would have had classified information on his actual laptop. So I think disconnecting from the network probably would have been fine to just let it run and do what it's doing.
Yeah.
But he didn't have the knowledge probably to disconnect his Wi-Fi in the first place. This is the Call to Freedom. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom. As always, you're invited to give us a call. That number is 603-283-6160. Or you can use the Discord call-in lines, which you can find at discord.lrn.fm. And once again, I'm going to remind you to check us out on DLive, which you can find at dlive.lrn.fm. It's a cool little Twitch-like platform that is supported, it would seem, by cryptocurrency. So
that's what it sounds like. I haven't had a chance to get on there yet because I've been having to do other things. But
there is some weird stuff going on with buying lino with cryptocurrency. Sometimes the option is there, sometimes it's not. It's there for me sitting here, and we're not on a VPN or anything like that. We're very clearly in the United States. But all very weird. But definitely go check it out. Again, that's dlive.lrn.fm. Now, coming to us from the BBC, the big fascinating news for me of the day is that astronomers have taken the first ever image of a black hole located in a distant galaxy.
It's very black.
As one would expect. I don't like the term black hole. I prefer black star because the black hole term makes people think that there's actually a hole there, and there's not. It's just a super condensed star that is so condensed that it has such a strong gravitational pull that it won't let light escape. But there is a thing there. There is a hunk of rock and gas and other crap there.
Yeah.
Not a hole. But it measures 40 billion kilometers across, which is massive for a black hole. 3 million times the size of the Earth. Why did they use the word size there?
I don't know.
And has been described by scientists as a monster. It's 500 million trillion kilometers away. Why would they even bother to say that? That's such a useless number.
Yeah, I know. Nobody has any conception of numbers that size.
They could just use light years. It's probably a few thousand, or I can't conceptualize 500 million trillion off the top of my head, but it's probably a few hundred trillion light years away as well.
I thought it was about 28,000 light years. I don't remember exactly, but
I haven't looked into what the conversion rate between 500 million trillion kilometers and light years actually is, but it was captured by the Event Horizon Telescope, a network of 8 linked telescopes, which is interesting because we've never really been able to prove the existence of black holes. Or, I mean, what we have been able to, but it's been a recent thing. Prior to about 20 years ago, they were simply speculated to be real things based on general relativity and the equations therein. But what we see here in this black hole is larger than the size of our entire solar system, which is a lot bigger than people think because it goes out quite a lot further than just, the 8 planets and the planetoid that they call Pluto. There's an entire another row of like space rocks, like asteroids and things like that is significantly further out. But it has a mass of 6.5 billion times that of the Sun, and is one of the heaviest black holes that we think exists. It is the heavyweight champion of black holes in the universe. Are they going to say anything interesting about black holes?
No, the really interesting bit is just the photograph, and unfortunately we can't show it to you, but you've got Google Images and you can find it yourself. The one I like is there are actually memes about this photograph. Now I've seen a bunch of them. There's the first one I saw. It was the close up of the black hole, which is it looks kind of like an orange donut.
Let's not describe the picture here on the show. But people can Google it and find it.
You can find the memes too.
But the image shows an intensely bright ring of fire. I say right after say, let's not describe the black hole here on the internet, on the show.
All right, let's not.
They're going to do it in text. It's caused by superheated gas falling into the hole. And again, that's not terminology that I like because it's caused by falling past the event horizon while orbiting this black star.
Well, you don't want to confuse people by using technical terms like event horizon.
What confuses people is the term black hole, which has caused people to think that there are these holes in the universe that are just abounding and that we have this giant hole at the center of our universe, and there's no truth to that whatsoever. We don't know what lies beyond the event horizon. This is true. But there is absolutely no reason to believe that it's going to be a magical portal to another universe or some kind of nonsense like that. It is a star.
It's going to be an environment with gravity so extremely high that you would have been crushed to nothing long before you got there.
Oh well, yeah, sure. There's that aspect to it.
So,
well, actually, you would be ripped apart on your way to it because your toes and your feet would feel a significantly stronger gravitational pull than the top of your head, and it would just literally pull you to pieces. Spaghettified, I think, is the term that physicists use, believe it or not. The event horizon is the place around a black hole where if anything gets that close to it, it becomes permanently trapped in the black hole's gravitational pull. That's what the event horizon is. And we can't see anything beyond that because light gets caught by that gravitational pull as well, and it's only light that we see when we look out into the universe and things like that, right?
Right.
So all we see is this orbiting cloud of gas that's kind of bright and all of that kind of stuff, and beyond that is a big black circle, the hole, as they call it. Mm-hmm. What I would imagine the inside of that event horizon looks like is going to be pretty wildly different from what the average person who hears the term black hole thinks, because they think they're going to pass into another universe or some kind of nonsense like that.
Yeah, not quite.
I think it would be blindingly bright. The radiation from the light orbiting around the outer edges of the event horizon would probably immediately destroy somebody.
Mm-hmm.
because all of that light is still there. It's trapped there. And the gravitational pull of the black hole is so extensive, and, they rotate just like everything else in the universe. So that light is going to be spinning around at the speed of light around the inside of this event horizon, and it's got nowhere to go. So I think that's what people would see, is just a lot of radiation inside of them. But I don't know that. They might be portals to other universes. There's no reason whatsoever to believe that.
Yeah,
it's a star.
It's impossible.
And I think on the other side of that event horizon, it would just look like I don't know what it would look like.
Now, if you want to go mountain expedition and take a look, be my guest. But I don't think you're going to find another universe.
Yeah, you would be spaghettified though. So, but you can see where the gas enters the black hole, which is an object that has such a large gravitational pull, not even light can escape. God, did they get remedial enough? And I realize I know more about physics than the average person, but is there anybody out there who doesn't know that about black holes?
There probably is. Are they listening to this show? Probably not.
I like to think that our average viewer is more knowledgeable, or average listener is more knowledgeable than the average person out there.
It's probably true.
But black holes are fascinating things because they are where quantum mechanics and general relativity actually converge. And for those who haven't followed that particular line of conversation or discussion closely, what ultimately is going on here is that general relativity, as proposed by Einstein, is mostly correct. And quantum mechanics, as discovered by Niels Bohr and lots of other physicists, it's an ongoing project, is mostly correct. For the most part, they are correct enough that we can figure out other things.
Yep.
But they argue with each other. General relativity and quantum mechanics, they disagree. It normally doesn't matter because you have to get to places where there is very small matter or very large amounts of matter, very strong gravitational pulls and things like that in very small spaces before the conflict between the two emerges.
Like a black hole.
Yeah, and the black hole is one of those places. The singularity is yet another. So our laws of physics, as we understand them, they work more or less. Yes, the gas does actually leave the hole. It's called Hawking radiation. Stephen Hawking was the one who discovered it and proved it to be a real thing. Every once in a while, black holes just spit out radiation, presumably, as I was talking about, because all of that light and things like that are just spinning around the event horizon, and it gets full, and some of it has to go somewhere.
Yep.
This is the Call to Freedom. We're going to move on, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom, and maybe you really like the show and would like to know what you can do to show your support. Well, you can now find us on dlive.lrn.fm, so you can give us a follow there. That would certainly help. You can also follow us on Twitch at twitch.lrn.fm, also a good thing. You can, subscribe to the Discord at discord.lrn.fm. You can share our stuff to Facebook, Twitter, all of that. All of that's helpful, but cash goes a pretty long way, too. And you can do that using Patreon at patreon.com/call-to-freedom. Our wonderful sponsors there are helping to keep the show up and running, including the podcast at calltofreedomlive.podbean.com and our efforts at calltofreedomlive.com, which is probably just going to become a portal to the podcast at this point, because I don't want to really overhaul the page.
Yeah, there's nothing on there anyway, right?
Not really. I mean, it's just a static page of the co-hosts and things like that, and it's mostly obsolete now because it's just you, me, and Chris never gave me a photograph. And it's more trouble than it's worth for a page that gets 2 visitors a month.
Yeah, Bennett.
Yeah, no, there's no reason for anyone to go to it. But that's patreon.com/call-to-freedom for those who would like to check it out. A Synergistic Shift says on DLive that they admire my knowledge of science. I actually majored in physics when I was initially in college. I ended up changing it to networking, computer networking, actually the management of information science. But I began majoring in physics because I was going to study general relativity at the University of Mississippi, because I am tremendously fascinated by these topics. I like knowing how the universe works. That's why I have pi tattooed here on my hand. because that is one of the fundamental building blocks of the universe as far as we can tell. And speaking of the conflict between general relativity and quantum mechanics, the fact that we can't definitively identify pi is proof that our Arabic number system is incorrect. It does not represent the true nature of the universe, because a circle's diameter to its radius is it is a set number. It is not infinite, right? Like this Coke can, or not Coke, but this Monster can here, it has a certain radius and it has a diameter that is exactly proportional to that radius.
Right.
But if I was to do the math on that, it would create an infinite number.
Pi.
But neither of these are infinite. They're both finite. So our entire measuring system with numbers is wrong. And it's with those numbers that we're measuring general relativity and quantum mechanics. So, of course, I mean, this is why Isaac Newton invented pi-based trigonometry, which was 3 pi over 2, 2 pi, 5 pi over 2, 3 pi, things like that. Because he was starting from this unidentified number in Arabic terms and moving forward to resolve that sort of contradiction between our mathematics and the real world. So all of that's a thing. But really, it gets really complicated. You can also generate infinite triangles and things like that in real life. I do a lot of thinking about this. Swift Swaff. He says someone other than me has thought about this. Yes. Like I said, it's why I have pi tattooed right here, and I swear I turned off Jazzy Cam twice. I mean, I did it once and nothing happened, and then I did it again and nothing happened. So but
you're going out.
Weird. I guess DLive is frozen for me then. Whatever. Oh, it's paused. It pauses itself randomly, I've noticed.
Yeah, what's up? What's going on with that?
Because I certainly didn't pause it. I didn't pause the stream. But anyway, yeah, so we're on DLive now. We're doing all kinds of interesting things. I'm looking forward to it. I'm, of course, launching a new show. I mean, there's nothing else to really go over in reference to black holes and science. We can keep BSing about it. That's fine. But, I mean, we cover the news. We got 6 minutes left. Not really enough time to get into anything complicated. So
yeah, not really.
Cool stuff is happening. I'm not sure what direction to really take Call to Freedom now that it's mine, I guess. It's interesting to me that all of the hosts are LGBT, and that's certainly a direction we could go, but I don't want to go that direction.
You don't want it to be an LGBT show.
I don't, no. I don't want the topic ever mentioned. It's just people mention it, and then I have to discuss it.
Yeah, that gets annoying after a while.
It does. Being trans in general is annoying after a while because you go to Facebook, and there's always somebody talking about transsexualism or transgenderism. If it's not some right wing talking about how this person is this person is insane, then it's going to be some SJW sharing a news article about how no, trans women are real women and you're a transphobe if you don't want to have sex with them. And if it's neither of those, it's just going to be somebody sharing some news article about some trans wrestler or something like that. And it's like, I don't want to have anything to do with any of that. I just want to go about my life. I don't know why you people think I'm your political football for you to pass around, but I refuse to be. I'm going to do my own thing, and screw you if you don't like it. And generally, they don't like it.
Oh, no, no, people don't like that. A lot of people just don't like being told to buzz off and mind their own business.
Well, Kebeditz has asked on Twitch, how is it working with that person with pink hair? Why do people always say it's pink? It's pretty obviously red, isn't it?
There's nobody with pink hair around. Oh, do they mean someone you were dating? Were you dating someone with pink hair?
Not recently.
Okay. Well,
but they're asking you what it's like working with me.
Oh, they're asking me what it's like working with... Oh, they think you have pink hair. Oh.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the stream right here. It's so clearly red.
Yeah. Do you have your, like...
you might need to adjust the color settings on your television.
Something's not right there.
I imagine it's difficult we're not idiots. You're the idiots who can't tell the difference between red and pink. But I imagine it's difficult working with me because I'm a pretty dominant personality.
Aria is very opinionated. She has strong opinions, and that's perfectly fine.
It is. It sometimes makes for good radio, like yesterday, which has been clipped for calltofreedomlive.podbean.com, where we ended up having a discussion about consensual dog sex.
I'm just gonna walk out of here on that one.
Yeah, I like Tuesdays because Chris and I we feed off of each other's unwillingness, lack of hesitation to say things that others are unwilling to say. So one day he may go, I'm not willing to say that all Nazis are evil. And then the next week I'm going, I will defend the rights of people to have consensual sex with dogs. The real question is, what is one of us going to bait the other into saying next week?
Yeah, it's always worth tuning in. It's just that one just didn't do it for me.
Well, the conversation was a bit, it was a bit out there for sure. There was also the illusion prior to that being trans was like being a serial killer that
right.
Chris made. I was not super thrilled about that.
Yeah, no, that's not too.
And to his credit, he did say that that's not what he was getting at. But I can't imagine what else he could have been getting at when he said that in the first place.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I think stuff just comes out of Chris's mouth.
Stuff
he's
certainly
just aware
just comes
of it
out
after
of my
the
mouth.
fact.
True. I mean, we kind of have to do that though here on the show. We just kind of have to keep talking, even if there's nothing that's particularly leaping out in our heads, because we don't really have the time to sit down and orchestrate our thoughts carefully into perfectly grammatically correct sentences.
Yeah, we're doing this live.
Yeah, that perfectly convey our points.
So sometimes it's difficult to just talk like right now. So.
It is. I mean, it's easy to sit and have a conversation with somebody. It's a little bit more difficult to sit and have a conversation with somebody when you know other people are listening and when you're trying to entertain those other people. But it's fun. I enjoy doing it. I'm glad to have the show now. It seems to be doing well. I don't want to slight Will by saying it, but it seems to be doing better than it has done in the past.
By what metrics? This is Mark Edge, host of Free Talk Live.
By our views or listens on podcast and our YouTube channel and Twitch viewership
viewers,
and things like that.
Podcast downloads, you name it.
They're all up between 100 and 400% each week.
So as a trans person, I've got questions.
Sure.
Tell me about pronouns. What do you think about pronouns? I mean, am I a bad person because sometimes I forget and call you a he instead of a she?
I don't think so.
None of that.
No. I mean, oh, God, I wish I had more time to go into this. But we're taught as little kids when to use he and when to use her, right? Somebody who conflicts with those perceptions is going to be the recipient of incorrect pronouns.
Sometimes it's going to happen, right?
Yeah, it's just a natural
Sometimes
thing.
I do it to regular folks. I mean, it just happens.
Well, this has been The Call to Freedom. Thanks for tuning in. Don't go anywhere because Free Talk Live is coming up next.